Another week, another viewer request. This one follows on from my Reanimator trilogy review where I mentioned this as being the prime example of a Brian Yuzna film. So yeah, let's take a look back at Society, which is a 1989 American body horror directed by Brian Yuzna. It being Yuzna's directorial debut, it is also in my mind the prime example of what is the Brian Yuzna script formula. But before I get ahead of myself, as always, let's start at the very beginning. The genesis for the film came about as a result of several of Yuzna's films failing due to him not being able to find a suitable director. Seeing as producer of Reanimator, he held the rights to a sequel and was aware he could receive financing on that. He used it as leverage to cut a two-picture deal, with Society becoming the first of those. Yuzna was attracted to the script as it was similar to a failed project he had already attempted with Dan O'Bannon. He changed the ending from a straight slasher with a religious cult into the surrealist alien orgy. Due to the surrealist ending, the production company introduced him to Screaming Mad George to provide the special effects, as they knew he was interested in surrealist gore. After being released in 1989 in Europe and being a success, it didn't receive an American release until 1992 and received almost no attention on release, although it did go on to cult status in the States. Yuzna has said about this, "I think Europeans are more willing to accept the ideas that are in a movie. That's why, for example, Society did really well in Europe and in the US did nothing, where it was a big joke. And I think it's because they responded to the ideas in there. I was totally having fun with them, but they are there nonetheless." Critical reception for the film was equally split between Europe and America, with European critics giving the film praise and American ones largely scorn, with Variety going as far as to describe it as extremely pretentious, obnoxious horror film that unsuccessfully attempts to introduce kinky sexual elements into extravagant makeup effects. Oh god, how wrong could a review be? As I stated before, this is in my mind the prime example of the Brian Yuzna script formula. Slow build up over 2 acts with a crazy, gonzo, off-the-wall final act that equal parts shocks, disgusts and thrills. Here we follow Bill Whitney, played by Billy Warlock of Baywatch fame, as he tries to work his way through his feelings of distrust towards his high society family, feeling that he is in fact adopted and not really their son. Here Yuzna gaslights both us the audience and Billy throughout the first 2 acts, with various subtle and not so subtle plot devices, with the first hints things aren't quite what they seem, being subtle and blink and you'd miss them, like when Billy sees his sister in the shower and her body appears to distort, or does it? Or when Clarissa, played by former Playboy centerfold Divine de Vasquez, appears to be twisted backwards post-coitus before you blink and she isn't, an effect they achieved by having one of Divine's friends buried under the covers and with a bum sticking out and the 2 ladies positioned towards the camera at such an angle it looks plausible they are one person twisted backwards in the middle. These soon ramped up to the less subtle, with whole taped conversations changing from the gruesome details of a murderous orgy to the innocuous discussion of a debutante ball, then ramping up even further with the dead body of a classmate being potentially fake and a person whose throat was very much slit being very much alive the very next day. This really does sell the paranoia and delusions that Bill is feeling, with even you questioning yourself as to did I just see or hear that at times, with even me, someone who'd seen this film numerous times, questioning whether his parents were in fact aliens through those first 2 acts. I've seen reviews and had various people suggest the first hour of this is boring, but personally I disagree. I think they are the perfect juxtaposition and setup for the payoff in the 3rd act, that glorious trademark gonzo Yuzna finale, where we discover not only are Bill's parents aliens, or a different species of human at any rate, so are pretty much all of the rich and influential people in Beverly Hills, and they feed off the poor in some form of grotesque semi-sexual orgy, where they strip to their underwear and begin the shunting, in which they begin to deform and combine into a giant blob, all while sucking the nutrients out of their poor victim. It is a truly shocking and disturbing scene, possibly only topped by Bill's escape being made possible by him pulling someone inside out mid-shunt. The final act is also a not exactly subtle social satire and commentary on the fact the rich are uncaring assholes who literally feed off the lives of the poor, all whilst portraying some form of moral superiority over them. There really aren't many final acts of a movie as shocking as this. It really is the kind of thing you see once and never forget. The special effects that made it all possible are of course all practical, with a giant puppet that required a dozen crew members to operate it being used to create the giant blob creature, with various prosthetics and a metric fuckton of what appears to be KY lube poured over everything. It looks magnificently disgusting, disturbing and shocking even today. So that was Society, for me the very prime example of Brian Yuzna's work and script formula, where a slow first two acts slowly build up to a gruesome and inventive finale. Here that works far better than in any other Yuzna film I have seen, as the first two acts are the perfect juxtaposition to that bonkers and disgusting ending. You can watch Society for free on Tubi too, so there's no excuse for not giving this a watch. Like, comment and subscribe, because next week Linnea Quigley and Linda Blair of Exorcist fame are out on the savage streets.